Everyone in town knew Rosie's Diner, but no one noticed the quiet waitress who held it together, until the day she gave a free cup of coffee to a man with empty pockets and kind eyes. She didn't know he was watching, not just her kindness, but her courage. What happened next? It didn't just change her life, it shook the whole town. Because when the world turns its back on goodness, sometimes goodness turns right back, with power. It was the kind of slow Tuesday where time felt like it had given up. The neon sign buzzed faintly above Rosie's Diner, casting a pink glow over the rain-specked windows. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of bacon grease and yesterday's coffee. Emma wiped down the counter like she always did. Rhythmic, focused, the kind of motion you don't have to think about when life's got too much on your plate. She'd worked here for 5 years, long enough to memorize every regular's order and every crack in the tile. Mr. Thompson would be in soon. Eggs over easy, dash of pepper, glass of water, no ice. Emma didn't need reminders. She didn't need a notepad. She was the kind of waitress diners were built around. Reliable, invisible, kind. But kindness doesn't pay medical bills. Her mom's prescriptions were piling up. Her little brother kept asking about college fees she couldn't promise. And no matter how many doubles she worked, no matter how many smiles she forced, the math never added up. Still, she smiled. That was Emma's thing. Smile first, cry later. The bell above the door gave a tired jingle. A man stepped in. Older, maybe late 60s. Black, tall but hunched. His coat hung loose, threadbare at the edges. Shoes scuffed to the sole. His eyes stayed low, like he'd learned not to expect kindness. Not in places like this. Emma greeted him anyway. Coffee? He nodded, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a few coins. Some quarters, a nickel, and a crumpled dollar bill. Not enough, not even close. From across the room, Mr. Carter, the manager, looked up from the books. His face twisted. He can't pay. He can't stay, he muttered, loud enough to carry. Emma hesitated, just a beat, then poured a fresh cup, slid it in front of the man. It's on me, she said softly. The man looked up, just for a second. His eyes met hers, weathered, wary, and something flickered there. Not shock, not quite, but something close to warmth. Thank you, he whispered, wrapping his hands around the cup like it was the first warmth he'd felt in days. Mr. Carter stood. You think this is a charity? We're not here to feed strays. Emma turned. It's a cup of coffee. It's stealing, Carter snapped. From this diner, from me. You're done. Silence fell like a dropped plate. The cook froze mid-order. Customers went still, forks halfway to their mouths. Emma didn't argue. She untied her apron, folded it slow, and placed it on the counter like it meant something. I hope one day you get it, she said quietly. Kindness isn't weakness. It's the only thing that's ever mattered. Then she walked out. No tears, no slamming doors. Just quiet dignity and the bell above the door whispering behind her. The next morning, gray skies hung over Rosie's Diner like a warning. Inside, Mr. Carter was barking orders as usual. The same man, the same scowl, the same belief that profit meant more than people. He hadn't given Emma a second thought since firing her. To him, she was just another waitress, easy to replace, easy to forget. Then a car pulled up. Not just any car. Sleek, black, silent like it belonged in another world. The kind of vehicle that didn't belong outside a chipped-up $2-a-plate diner. Heads turned when the door opened, and out stepped the same man from yesterday. But everything about him had changed. Gone was the frayed coat, the hunched shoulders, the coins rattling in his palm. He wore a tailored charcoal suit now, shoes polished to a mirror shine. His posture was tall, his gaze direct. The man wasn't lost anymore. Mr. Carter's jaw tightened. He knew instantly he'd made a mistake, but not just because the man looked different. Number it was the way he owned the room the moment he stepped in. Calm, composed, in control. He walked straight to the counter, scanned the space like he'd seen it all before, because he had, and spoke. My name is James Whitmore. I own this diner. Gasps. One of the cooks dropped a spatula. A waitress clutched her order pad to her chest. Carter blinked. You're the CEO? Whitmore nodded once. Of this location, and 124 others across the country. Carter stammered. We didn't know. No one told us. You weren't supposed to know. His voice didn't rise, but it filled the room like thunder without the noise. I was traveling through and decided to stop in, to see how my staff treats everyone. Not just the ones with gold cards and clean shoes. He paused, scanning the diner again. And yesterday, I saw everything. Carter went pale. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I came in needing nothing but basic decency, Whitmore continued. One person gave it to me. She didn't know who I was. She didn't do it for show. She did it because that's who she is. Emma. The name hovered in the air, even though no one said it. She lost her job for giving a man a cup of coffee, he said, eyes locked on Carter. And today, she gets it back, along with a promotion. A stunned silence. And more, Whitmore added, pulling a paper from his inner jacket. I understand her family's been struggling, so I'm covering her mother's medical bills. And her brother's college tuition. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," from a nearby booth. Mr. Carter's hands trembled. Sir, you treated people like problems. Whitmore cut in, his gaze like glass. She treated people like people. That's the difference between running a business and building a legacy. And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving Carter standing in the wreckage of his pride. Down the street, Emma sat at the small kitchen table in her mother's apartment, nervously filling out a job application online. There was a knock. When she opened the door and saw him, clean suit, sharp eyes, steady smile, her breath caught. "Mr. Whitmore?" she said, stunned. He handed her the offer letter. "You didn't just serve coffee," he said. "You served humanity." Emma blinked, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say." "No need," he said gently. The world noticed. Word spread fast. By lunch, local news vans had parked outside Rosie's diner. Cameras rolled. Microphones were raised. But the real buzz wasn't outside. It was inside, where Emma stood once again behind the counter, not in a server's apron, but in a manager's blazer. The regulars clapped when she walked in. Mrs. Riley, who always ordered the same blueberry pie and hot tea, hugged her. Even young Jamal, who usually sat silent with his earbuds in, took one out and gave her a shy nod of respect. Everything felt the same, yet entirely different. In the far corner of the diner, Mr. Carter sat slumped at a booth, no longer barking orders but quietly nursing his coffee. He hadn't been fired, not yet, but he'd been told to take a leave. The staff didn't look at him with fear anymore. They didn't look at him much at all, because the story wasn't about him now. It was about Emma. By evening, her phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from newspapers, messages from strangers thanking her, offers from people wanting to donate to her family. But Emma wasn't thinking about fame or recognition. She was thinking about that moment, that tiny decision, just one cup of coffee, and how it had changed everything. At home, her little brother Marcus sat across from her, eyes wide. "Wait, so that guy was really the owner?" She nodded, smiling softly. "He was. And now Mom's bills are covered? And I can go to school?" "Yes, Marcus." He blinked, stunned, then smiled for the first time in weeks. In the other room, their mother wept quietly, not out of sadness, but relief. Emma stepped outside for air, sitting on the porch where her dad used to sit before he passed. She looked up at the stars and thought about all the nights she'd spent worrying, wondering if the world even noticed people like them. Turns out sometimes it does. Later that week, Rosie's diner became something else. People didn't just come in for pancakes and coffee anymore. They came in for the feeling. They brought their stories, their worries, their hopes, and Emma listened, just like she always had. Except now, when she smiled across the counter, they saw more than a waitress. They saw a woman who had stood up for kindness in a world that too often forgets it. And on Friday evening, the door chimed again, and in walked James Whitmore, alone this time, no suit, no entourage. Just a man in a plain coat. Emma looked up from her paperwork and smiled. "Back for more coffee?" she asked. He chuckled. "Only if you're still pouring." She poured him a cup and joined him at the counter. For a while they didn't speak. They just sat, two people who'd seen the world from very different places, brought together by one small act of grace. "You changed this place," James finally said. Emma shook her head. It was always good. I just reminded it how to show it." Outside, the neon sign of Rosie's glowed brighter than it had in years, not because of the electricity, but because of the people inside, because of Emma. The days rolled on, but the impact didn't fade. Emma's story traveled beyond the city, picked up by national outlets, shared in podcasts, turned into think pieces about decency in modern times. But inside Rosie's, she stayed the same, refilling coffee, learning names, asking how people really were. That was her gift. But not everyone was celebrating. Some locals called it a stunt, said it was all just lucky timing, that a waitress getting a break from a millionaire was more fairy tale than real life. Emma ignored the noise. Until one morning a woman walked in, a stranger, polished, sharp-eyed, blazer-pressed. She introduced herself as Rebecca Lane, a representative from corporate. She'd been sent to assess the diner's recent changes. Just a routine check, she smiled thinly. Emma nodded, polite but wary. Feel free to look around. Rebecca observed the staff, scribbled notes, asked clipped questions. She didn't eat, didn't smile. And after 2 hours, she asked Emma to step into the back office. The brand is shifting, she said flatly. We need consistency across locations. Emma folded her arms gently. What kind of consistency? No personal giveaways, no unauthorized comps, no exceptions to policy. Emma's jaw tightened, but her voice remained calm. So if someone comes in, clearly hungry, but can't pay, you direct them to leave, Rebecca replied. We're not in the charity business. Emma took a breath, steadying herself. Maybe we should be in the human business. Rebecca raised a brow. You were hired as a symbol of service, not as a policymaker. I was hired, Emma replied, voice firm now, because I did what was right when no one was looking. The two women stared across the desk, tension thick but silent. Finally, Rebecca stood. I'll be filing my report. Emma walked her to the door. Not a single apology passed her lips. Later that evening, as the diner wound down, James Whitmore returned. He had heard. She wants to rebrand kindness out of us, Emma said, exhaustion creeping in. James sipped his coffee. Rebecca's not wrong to think about image, but she's wrong about the heart of it. Emma looked at him. What happens now? That depends on what you want, he said. She paused. I want to build a place where decency isn't seasonal, where kindness isn't an exception, where people matter more than margins. He smiled. Then that's what we'll build. The next morning, a new sign was hung beneath Rosie's logo. Now under Emma's direction. Community first. James had quietly offered her ownership of the location. She'd said yes, with one condition. No red tape, no consultants, just people. And that's how Rosie's became more than a diner. It became a shelter on cold nights, a job board for struggling locals, a meeting space for students and elders alike. The food stayed the same. The service got better. And Emma? She became the quiet heartbeat of a town slowly learning what kindness could really look like. The summer sun hung low as the day drew to a close. Inside Rosie's diner, the windows glowed with a golden tint, casting long shadows across the checkered floor. The last customer of the day lingered over a slice of peach pie, and Emma wiped down the counter like she always did, calm, steady, present. But something was different. The world outside had changed. Emma no longer wore a name tag because she didn't need one. Everyone knew who she was now. Her story had reached more than just the people who passed through the diner doors. It had rippled through news feeds, classrooms, boardrooms. 1,000 headlines tried to sum it up, but none of them captured the quiet weight of what had really happened. One act of kindness had realigned an entire community, and it hadn't stopped. Rosie's had become a refuge, a place where people who felt invisible were reminded they mattered. The wall near the register now displayed handwritten notes, gratitudes, second chances, lives redirected. Some were from nearby. Others had been mailed from states away. A man who'd been clean for 90 days. A teen who stopped skipping school. A mother who'd found the courage to leave an abusive partner. Each note taped with care. No filters, no spin, just truth. The scholarship James Whitmore had offered Liam had turned into something bigger too. James had launched a program in Emma's name, a fund for students pursuing service-based careers, social workers, teachers, nurses, EMTs, people who kept the world going not through profit, but through purpose. Every few weeks, James stopped by the diner, never in a rush, always low-key. He and Emma had become unlikely collaborators. Business strategy meetings scribbled on napkins, visions of franchising Rosie's not as a chain, but as a movement. We don't replicate diners, Emma had told him once. We replicate values. Still, for all the growth and visibility, Emma kept things simple. She worked every shift like she used to. She remembered birthdays. She poured the coffee herself. Because underneath it all, she was still the same woman who believed that kindness was worth more than pride. One late August evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, A woman stepped into the diner, mid-40s, tired eyes, carrying a baby in one arm and a duffel bag in the other. Emma saw the hesitation on her face and approached gently. "Come sit. You both look like you could use a moment." The woman sat. Her name was Candace. She'd fled a situation she couldn't even fully explain yet. She hadn't slept in 2 nights, had nowhere to go. Emma brought her food, a bottle for the baby, and called a local shelter she knew could take them immediately. When the woman tried to offer thanks, Emma just smiled. "Been there. Not exactly there, but close enough to know what it feels like." Candace nodded, eyes filling. Later, as Emma walked them to the door, she pressed something into Candace's palm. It was a small card, just her name and a phone number. "You don't owe me anything," Emma said. "But if you ever find yourself on your feet, come back and tell me how it went." Candace's voice cracked. "Why are you doing this?" Emma looked at her with the same calm certainty she'd carried since that cold day James Whitmore first stepped through the door pretending to be someone else. "Because someone did it for me. And because it's how things change. One cup of coffee at a time." That night, Emma sat outside the diner alone, watching the last customers walk to their cars. Liam called to say he'd gotten into Georgetown. Her mother, healthier now, had returned to part-time work and joined a community group helping other patients navigate billing systems. Emma smiled at the stars. Quiet joy. The kind that doesn't demand applause. But change never came without resistance. In town, a few still resented the attention Rosie's had received. They claimed it had become political. Too soft. Too much. A diner shouldn't make headlines. But Emma never responded. Not out of fear, but out of clarity. Rosie's wasn't for everyone. It was for the people who needed it. And then, one Sunday morning, something happened that reminded everyone why it mattered. A local officer arrived during brunch hours, a young Latina named Officer Reyes. She stepped in, hat in hand, visibly shaken. Emma met her at the counter. "There's been a fire," Reyes said softly. "One of the apartment buildings downtown." Emma didn't wait. She called the back. The cooks immediately started packing boxes. Regulars stepped in to help. Within an hour, Rosie's had delivered hot meals to over 30 displaced families. No cameras, no speeches, just action. Reyes returned that evening. "Why'd you help so fast?" Emma smiled, wiping her hands. "Because hungry people don't need approval, they need food." Reyes nodded. "This town's lucky to have you." Emma looked out the window where Candace was standing, holding her baby, smiling through the glass. A full circle moment. "No," Emma said. "I'm lucky to have this town." That night, someone slid a new note under the diner door. Emma found it the next morning, written in neat cursive on a folded piece of paper. It read, "I walked in once cold and broken. You gave me warmth and reminded me I was still human. Now I help others feel the same. Thank you. A stranger no more." She added it to the wall. The legacy of Rosie's Diner wasn't built on viral fame or corporate funding. It was built in those quiet moments, when a hand reached out, when judgment gave way to grace. And Emma? She remained exactly as she began. Not a hero, just a woman who poured coffee and meant it.